Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to a review of a watch from an entire Seiko line nobody talks about. An entire Seiko line you've probably never heard of. Seriously, I hadn't heard of it until I bought this one a couple of weeks ago. Or at least if I had heard of it, it hadn't registered. And this is my job. I have made 800 videos so far, and according to YouTube, over 100 of them have had something to do with Seiko. They really are the biggest player in the budget market that this channel is focused on. So how did I miss an entire line? Let's play a game. Hold up your hand and keep it up if you've heard of a Seiko range. Let's start easy. Seiko 5. Of course, we've all heard of Seiko 5 and probably all owned one at some stage. Likewise, Prospects, their dive watch range, again, plenty of them in my collection. Presage, their dress watch line, including those delicious and now numerous cocktail times. Again, my hand is still up. Coutura. For better or for worse, yes indeed, I was well aware of Seiko Coutura, and I'm sure most of you were too. But Seiko Premier? I must admit my ignorance. So I had a look at the marketing blurb for Premier and it all sounds reasonable. According to Seiko themselves, the Premier collection offers refined elegance in dress watches for both men and women. Classic and modern design themes combine in harmony with Seiko's innovative technology to create a series of timepieces that are as stunning as they are subtle. Sounds good, right? But then marketing blurb usually does, doesn't it? So of course I had to rush out and buy one and see exactly what, if anything, I've been missing. Let's flip the camera and find out. Okay, let's remind ourselves again of the marketing brief before I open this box and reveal all. We're looking for refined elegance, a dress watch, classic and modern elements in perfect harmony, creating a stunning yet subtle timepiece. No pressure then by the Seiko marketing department. And you know what? I'm not quite sure that that's actually what this watch delivers. Look, I'm not going to give this one a roasting today, but I will be honest with you, I bought it knowing that it wasn't really quite my personal cup of tea. Not necessarily my taste, this one. Having said that though, if it's your style, then go for it. Continue to watch this video and I'll let you know what I think it does well and what I think it doesn't do well. But I don't think it fulfills its brief. Classic and modern, just because you slap some Romans around the outer edge of the dial doesn't necessarily give this watch a classic tradition. I wouldn't describe it as a dress watch at all, and I'm not quite sure that this design is either subtle nor harmonious. There are, however, some things that I do think it does quite well. I paid 420 Aussie dollars for this from my local retailer. That's about 340 USD at the current exchange rate. And I don't think that's too bad. There's some interesting tech here with this quartz movement. Sapphire crystal. It's a really interesting, if not quite elegant or subtle, bracelet. Multifaceted, multi-finished with push pins. It's a proper H-link, and that clasp is a mile better than anything I've seen on an equivalently priced Seiko Prospects or Presage for around $350. So it's by no means all bad then, this Premier. The dimensions though I definitely would not describe as dressy. I measure it at 40.7 across the bezel, but you're lucky to get a true 40.7. It wears more like a 42 to be honest, because of that additional material on the crown side of the case. Slim at 10.3, but we're back up to a long lug to lug, relatively speaking, of 51.2 and an awkward 21mm lug width. No taper on the bracelet, pretty much all the way. It's about 20.5, back up to 21 at that nice clasp. Sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, 146 grams, so there's definitely a bit of chunk to it despite the quartz movement. But it is nicely, if slightly unusually finished. Fixed high polish bezel, flat sapphire crystal, and a really nice smooth kind of Seiko signature smooth high polish to the case. They have got those kind of additional, they are supposed to look like they're not part of the case structure, kind of attached lugs there. Very, very fine brushing on those surfaces. But as far as I can tell, they are actually part of the same case structure. Flip it around to the crown side, we have an unsigned push-pull crown, 100 meters of water resistance by the way, and two little high polish pushers here. Crown is sort of semi-guarded. Again, this brushed, double brushed finish. There's a little crown guard looking like, again, it is attached, but it is again part of the overall case structure. And it's an interesting bracelet as well, H-link, which is not something I've seen before from Seiko, certainly not at around this price. We do have an articulated female N-link helping offset somewhat that 51 lug to lug, and we have a variety of finishes. Each section has a brushed center and high polished edges. That goes for those mid links as well, and it is a pin and collar system. Now only 3 holes of micro adjust here, could have done with a 4th, but it's not too bad. Double security pusher, Seiko stamped in there nicely, and that is a lovely piece of machining, super smooth. Talking of super smooth, look at that case back. This watch wears very, very comfortably. I'll get it on wrist in just a second or two. And that beautiful high polished case back with nice etching, the Seiko and the Premier in italics is definitely a factor in that. Screw on helping with that 100 meters and the usual spec sheet, sapphire crystal, stainless steel and a Japanese movement. That movement being a caliber 7T62. That movement is a battery powered quartz. Batteries last 3 years. They do kinetic Premier Seikos. I've reviewed one Seiko Kinetic in the past. That is more than enough for me. I think it's a dreadful idea. It contains in some ways the worst elements of batteries and automatic watches in combination. So I'm happy that this one has just got a single cell, swap it out every 3 years. Stated accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds per month. Date at 3. We have a small ticking second over there at the 9 o'clock. It is a 60-minute chrono timer. That is the register at the 12 o'clock. And this watch features an alarm. Again, interesting tech with this one. Kind of reminds me of some of the specifications that came on the 2 Casio Oceanus models that I have reviewed recently as well. 60-minute chrono functions pretty much as you'd expect. Measures down to the 1/5 of a second. 1 press of the top pusher to start. 1 press of the top pusher to stop. 1 press of the top pusher to slow reset. You can do accumulated time, so you can start, you can stop, you can start again, you can stop again, and then you can reset. You can also do a split time, top pusher to start, B pusher for the first lap, press B again, and it will catch up with itself. Press A to stop, and B to reset once more. Or you can do a kind of 2 competitors crossing the finish line idea. Press A to start the top pusher, B pusher for the first competitor, A pusher for the second competitor, and then it'll display that time, and then you reset again, slow reset back to 0. The final noteworthy feature, the sub dial down there at 6 o'clock is an alarm, a bit of a rarity, even on quartz chronographs like this one. I believe it should be going off in about 2 minutes time, so I'm going to place the watch gently on the table, and by the power of video editing, I'm going to play you a little bit of light elevator music while we both wait for this to go off. And there it is, a reasonable alarm. That'll definitely wake you. It's quite piercing, goes on for 20 seconds unless you press either the A button or the B button, which I just did. So that's what it does. How does it look when it's doing what it does? Well, it looks like this. And this is a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. I think some parts of this look good. Some parts of the dial and hands, etc. look pretty good. Some of it just doesn't work for me. There's a lot going on though, isn't there? 3 sub-registers, plus we've got a date complication, plus there's that circle in the center, large applied indices, it's an applied Seiko logo, we've got Premier, chronograph, slightly unnecessary, at least advertising the fact that it's a chronograph printed, asymmetric branding as well, which always makes things look slightly awkward, plus you've got additional printing on that alarm sub-register telling you it's an alarm, and you've got the 12 and 6 Romans there too, so a lot going on. But at least it is quite nicely done. Those indices are faceted and they taper in towards the pinion. And it's got that lovely Seiko half-frosted handset. I really like when they do this. It does add legibility, it does add definition, and it looks great as well. If I zoom in on the date complication, you can see it's colour matched and it's framed well. And if we have a close look at the sub-registers, again, they're all nicely done. The printing is crisp and there are some surrounds there. with more concentric circle work, again playing with the light nicely. What doesn't work for me though is that angled chapter ring with the Romans. The Romans just don't really suit this watch at all. I don't think it's a particularly interesting or attractive script that they've used, the Roman font if you will, they're printed on, which looks a little bit cheap compared to the rest of the dial, which actually looks quite premium. They just look like a bit of an unnecessary afterthought, to be honest. I guess that's their attempt at the whole classic meets modern fusion thing, but personally I could have done without the classic in this case. I have to say though, it's a really comfortable watch, a surprisingly comfortable watch. I showed you how beautifully smooth and high polished that case back was. The underside of this H-link bracelet is similarly well finished, and I've shown you the clasp a couple of times. Long lug to lug, but it is quite slim because it's quartz. Yeah, very nice on wrist, surprisingly comfortable. This would make a great daily, I reckon. Just so long that is, as you had good eyesight and weren't all that concerned about at a glance legibility. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the dial. I don't think the handset is particularly legible. No lume on it to help after dark either with this one. And you're going to have to be alright with quite a lot of light play. It's quite blingy, this one, because of the high polish bezel, because of the multiple high polish finishes to the case and the multiple high polish finishes to those H-links on the bracelet. You're doing quite well getting sapphire at all from Seiko at this price. Don't expect any anti-reflective undercoating though. But on wrist it was a real surprise, this one. Super smooth, super comfortable. Those slightly awkward looking lugs at least do point down. And the articulated female end-link really helps it conform to my 7-inch wrist nicely. And the pocket shot to finish, again here, when I roll my wrist back and forth, you can see how much light play this watch has. It's a real eye catcher, and frankly, I don't think it goes at all with my chosen shorts or t-shirt today. Moans and niggles. Well, the handset I think are a little bit too small and not particularly legible. Overall, the looks are just awkward and unresolved. It looks like 3 different watches, at least 3 different watches all stuck together, none of which really makes a cohesive whole. The center dial looks like it belongs to a different watch from the outer dial, looks like it belongs to a different watch from one side of the case to the other side of the case, and then an entirely different watch that originally owned that bracelet. And to go back to my original point, if you buy a Seiko Premier, you're buying a Seiko with no profile really. I'd never heard of them. I don't think it's a particularly big range. I don't think it's a particularly popular range. I think it's a range for people who aren't all that into watches. Super comfortable, a little bit of extra utility from the movement. It would therefore make a nice daily, but I'm just not sure how many people would actually want to look at the wrist every day and see that thing. So there you have it, the Seiko Premier range. Now I understand why nobody talks about them. Look, it's not a terrible watch, and if that's your bag, then go for it, but I'd recommend a cocktail time all day, every day, and twice on Sundays because they're just so much better looking. Thanks for watching. See you soon.